Episode 6. Wow.
Can't believe it.
It's moving very quickly.
It is. Cheers.
Good old Prosecco. Can't go wrong.
She's my go-to girl.
I had some red wine earlier, but it's fine. It was like 2 hours ago.
One of those Wednesdays.
Yeah. So what's tea? What are we chitty-chatting about?
I think we should talk about boundaries. And I think we should talk about setting boundaries when it just comes to every aspect of your life, whether it's your friendships, your relationships, family, or in the workplace, but just overall boundaries for yourself.
I like that. Something I've had to work on a lot. Still work on. Something I still have to get comfortable with. I'm better at setting them now, but it's still uncomfortable to do.
Mm-hmm. Because not everyone takes it, I feel like, the same. You know what I mean? Depending on who it is. And it's like once you sometimes establish those boundaries, then I feel like people are kind of like thrown off, like, whoa, like, why are you acting different? Are you acting funny? It's like, no, I'm just setting my boundary with you.
Yeah, and especially the people that benefited from you not having boundaries or are used to you not having boundaries, then it's a real issue for them, or they're not comfortable with it. Or yes, to your point, it's the you're acting different or you changed, or sometimes people's feelings are hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But boundaries are necessary. And I think it kind of goes along with how much you love and care about yourself. I think sometimes the lack of boundaries can be you abandoning yourself or your own needs, or you not taking care of yourself.
No, very true. I just had a conversation with someone yesterday about that, as far as just like, do you not realize when you don't set those boundaries how empty your glass is? You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Because you're so busy pouring into other people and you're literally burning yourself out because you're overextending yourself to everybody. But then it's like you don't even have time to really pour and give into yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what made me start setting boundaries, was the fact that I'm realizing like I'm so worried about everyone else to where I'm falling and lacking in certain areas that I needed to improve in.
Mm-hmm.
So once I felt like I set my boundaries, I have been able to really focus and excel in some of those areas where I was kind of lacking before.
Yeah. I think setting boundaries is definitely a form of self-care,
Yes.
for sure. Um, I think one thing that I had to work on was letting things boil up and holding everything in, my frustrations. And then when I finally did set a boundary, it just doesn't come out right. Because at that point, it was just like animosity,
Yeah.
just like built up.
Yeah.
Um,
It gets like that.
yeah. So I've had to get better at and it obviously wasn't intentional to like be disrespectful
Right.
or not have a respectful tone in doing so, but setting those boundaries before the frustration kicks in and like I just implode um from within. So yeah, I would say outside of trying to get more comfortable setting them, that's the other thing that I had to work on.
Yeah. Well, how about we get into some questions?
Period. Period.
What's a boundary you didn't know you needed until dealing with a past relationship or a situation with a man?
I don't know if this is a boundary or like a non-negotiable, but I think emotional intelligence and emotional availability was something
Mm.
that until the last couple of years, I did not realize how much that I personally needed that.
Mm.
Um, because I realized a pattern in the people that I dated would invalidate my feelings.
Mm.
And having my feelings validated, I've learned, is something that is very important to me. One, because I obviously can be an emotional person, but two, I went through a period of time in a relationship where I was just completely non emotional and compartmentalizing and not feeling anything. And I really put in the work to get myself to a place where I'm okay if I cry. It's actually a sign of strength, because
Yeah.
as being vulnerable is a sign of strength, or allowing myself to feel my feelings and express that something hurt me or upset me is a sign of strength. And so, but what I've realized is, now that I've gotten to that place of being comfortable expressing my feelings, it is a trigger for me then when my feelings are then invalidated.
Mhm.
So that's something that has like truly become a non-negotiable for me, that I didn't even realize about myself until the past couple of years.
No, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like that's something too for me. It's like dealing with men and you feel like, okay, you're just not listening to me or you're not changing. But then
Mm.
it's like if the roles are reversed and you tell me like, hey, you're not doing this, like I'm trying to work on that. But
Mhm.
I get what you mean. Like sometimes it's not really reciprocated.
Yeah.
And that is definitely a problem.
Yeah. I also found myself explaining, I think trying to explain things to somebody who lacks emotional intelligence is literally like talking to a brick wall, um, about why something was hurtful. And I really did not realize how much time I was spending on it, or how exhausting it was, until I was out of the situation. Um, I dated someone before that was like maybe like 6 years older than me. And
Mm.
in the middle of a conversation, he would just be like, "Well, I'm older, I'm more mature, I have more relationship experience."
I
And it's
hate
like,
that
you are
reply.
completely trying to invalidate everything I said simply because
Mhm.
you're older. And um, wisdom does not always come with age.
9 times out of 10, it does not.
Yeah. And so dealing with that consistently over a period of time, was not healthy for me. And
Mhm.
so that's, yeah, that's definitely now a big boundary for me, is you're going to need to acknowledge my feelings and hear
Mhm.
me. Um, Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Yeah. I feel like a boundary for me is for sure just sometimes the space or maybe sometimes the clinginess of a man.
Mm,
Um, I think just because like a lot of times I can be busy and have things going on. So for me, sometimes I feel like when someone obviously gets to know you and they like you, they're constantly in your space. And we've
mhm,
kind of already talked about that before. Obviously, we have conversation about this all the time as far as just fitting a man into our lives and the schedules that we already have. So for me, I definitely like to set boundaries now with men because in the past, I dated guys where obviously you spend a lot of time with them to where now it's like they feel like okay they can't go a night without being with you or a day without seeing you and things like that, and then it's like they become your life,
mhm,
and then you kind of like don't have time to hang out with your friends or your family anymore. So for me in my past relationship, I honestly, my ex kind of separated me from everybody, but that was just a part of his control,
yeah,
of course. But at the same time I learned like, Ashlyn, make sure you always set that boundary moving forward because in our relationship, literally, like we were together every day. And that was just way too much. At the time, of course, it's like, oh my gosh, he wants to spend time with me. He wants to be with me. But you actually don't realize how unhealthy it is to be with your person every single day. Like, that's not healthy.
mhm,
And if a man wants to be with you every day, I'm sorry, like, that's just not healthy. Of course, if you're married, that's different. But
yeah. Like those
dating,
earlier stages of
yeah,
dating. Yeah,
like give me my space, please. So
yeah,
for me, space and time to miss you is like a huge boundary for me ever since that.
yeah. I could see that, especially now with how busy we both are. When it feels like somebody's breathing down your neck, that just creates more stress.
Yeah,
And life is already stressful. Um, so yeah, no, somebody that also has their own things
please.
going on,
Yeah.
um, so that they're not constantly on your ass.
Yeah. Dang, you out again? Dang, you doing this again?
Oh my
You never home.
God.
Like, yeah, because I'm busy doing other things. Like,
Yes. And I feel like that kind of plays along with insecurity,
yes.
because yes, I am going out with my friends. Oh, did a guy try to talk to you? Oh God, here we go. Like, please have some confidence.
No, seriously.
Or like, oh, you've been out of town for a while. You going to visit your boyfriend in New York? I got that recently. It's like,
Mm-mm.
I don't have a boyfriend and I certainly don't have one in New York. I just go to New York often. But
Right.
like, why are we talking about this again?
Seriously. What role does self-worth play in setting and enforcing boundaries in dating?
Self-worth. I mean, I think that goes along with what we were talking about earlier as far as your boundaries are an indication of how much you love yourself. Um, One of my other favorite quotes, I feel like I have a lot of favorite quotes.
You definitely are quote over this. I
I
love it.
literally have a quote note in my phone, and it's called
Mm.
wisdom bars. Oh, just like my favorite one-liners that like where it's like, yep, that's a good one. It's literally called wisdom bars.
I love
Um,
that.
I think it says something along the lines of, you know what? I actually read it the other day. I'm gonna find it. Okay. It says, continuing to allow someone to disappoint you is not a reflection of how big your heart is. It is a reflection of how weak your boundaries are.
Wow.
Yes. And I wrote that
Mm.
down and added it
Deep.
to my notes because I feel like for the longest time, I am an empathetic person
Yeah.
and I do have a strong ability to empathize with people and see where they're coming from. But two things can be true at once. You can fully understand the reasoning behind somebody's actions and why they behaved the way they did, but you can also love yourself enough to not allow them to treat you a certain way and to set
Right.
those boundaries. Um, and I think a lot of times people spend too much time being like, well, I understand where they were coming from, da, 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 and they kind of neglect their own needs or wants, or they don't take care of themselves in that
Yeah.
way. So I think that's where self worth, self love, self esteem comes in.
No, I love that answer
Yeah.
because that is, I think that's so true. Um, and that just reminded me going back to the situation I was just talking about with my ex, as far as just like back then, I know I didn't have as much self love as I do now, because now it's like, no, I'm so big on putting me first. And I feel like you said, a part of boundaries is just how much do you love yourself
Hmm.
and, believe in yourself. So
Hmm.
I love that response. That's a great quote. I need to add that.
Yes, yes. I maybe I'll share this note with you. Um,
Yeah.
but it's very exclusive, because I like to drop these one-liners sometimes and like make people think, that I'm just full of these bars. Meanwhile, it's just a bunch of quotables in my notes.
No, I love it. I love it. How do you balance being vulnerable in a relationship while still protecting your boundaries? Because, sometimes I think we can have walls up on certain things to where it's like,
Mhm,
you know, I think for me, so I'm a Virgo. And the thing about us Virgos is we are super loving and super caring, but you have to get to know us. If someone met me off the street, they probably would say she's this, she's that, because we are very like protected and guarded at first. But that also is something that has affected me in my dating world.
mhm,
Because a lot of men will say you're kind of reserved, like I don't really know how you feel, or I don't feel like you like me. And it's like, I actually really do like them half the time. And it's like, sorry, you don't think I'm showing it enough. But um, I think the way I try to work on being vulnerable enough, but still kind of keeping my boundary, is me starting to go to therapy and more so talking it out and seeing like, where am I going wrong or what am I doing wrong to not, I guess, express or show the man that I'm talking to that I genuinely want to be with him or care about him or like
mhm,
him. Um, so for me, I think talking to a therapist the last couple months has helped me, just because I have a hard time like talking about what I'm going through or how I feel with people. So I think talking to a therapist that just doesn't really know me,
yeah.
um, it's helping me really express myself.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think that's
See,
my
I feel like
answer.
I've been on the other side of that in dating,
Mm,
where I've tended to um, entertain people that were not emotionally available. And yeah, so I feel like I'm on the other side of that. Not saying that you invalidate people's feelings, you're just
right,
not very outward with your own.
right.
Um, but I feel like I've dated people where they were not the ones to open up. But I think another quotable, is you can only meet people as deep as they've met themselves. And so what
Yeah.
I've experienced is because I've been in therapy, I've gone deep,
Mhm.
and then that's a struggle in dating because a lot of people are not doing that work.
Right.
And so that's where it comes to my feelings getting invalidated or whatever, because people just are not at that level.
Right. That's true.
Because how can you empathize with what I'm saying when you don't even feel your own feelings?
Mhm.
You know? So that was a hard lesson too, because it's like, what's not clicking?
Yeah.
you know? But it's not clicking because they haven't done the work.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. I think that's another reason. Just add it to the scroll. Drop my scroll right now of list of reasons
Your scroll is crazy, Blake.
why I'm just like waiting patiently and not necessarily pressed about dating right now, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're a woman making over six figures, you're a black woman, you're a straight black woman that wants a straight black male that also does well, is loyal, is not incarcerated, is not gay. Like our options are already limited.
Very.
And then the more work that I continue to do on myself, the harder it's going to be for me to find somebody at that same level emotionally, which most black men are not doing that work because
Right.
there's this whole stigma in the black community around therapy as is. So I just feel like, again, the batch of potential suitors is becoming even more small outside of like those traditional things. The more work you put in on yourself, then it's really going to be hard to find somebody to be compatible with. So yeah, that's also why I'm just chilling right now. But yeah, you can only meet people as deep as they've met themselves. But hopefully
Absolutely.
therapy becomes less of a negative thing in the black community.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so too. And I think the good thing about therapy now, honestly, truthfully, I forgot if I've said this before. I actually started therapy because I was supposed to have been started. I just was not ready. But my company offered like 8 free sessions, and the more I'm talking to other friends, a lot of companies are offering, free therapy sessions up to
Hmm.
like 8 to 10 sessions. So
Hmm.
I'm hoping that it does become more normalized, because for those that it may be harder to get started, at least a lot of these companies now are offering it for free at first.
Yeah.
So I do hope that helps, because I know there's some other friends that have mine that have taken advantage of that. So I do feel like it's becoming more common, and I do feel like more people are talking about it. And it's okay to say, I have a therapist, without someone being like, oh my God, are you okay?
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh my God, girl, I need to start. Or, oh my gosh, like, girl, I love mine. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm loving that's becoming more normalized. But I think obviously it's more so our generation, our parents' generation and up, they're kind of iffy about it.
Hmm.
Like, a lot of them still don't go, and I think they need to. And now they feel like, well, I don't need it, but it's like, we all need it.
Yes.
We all need it.
But I think it's becoming more normalized. But then I think also, if people don't look at you like, ooh, what's wrong with you? I feel like I've experienced too, not like people don't say it, but I almost feel like it's intimidating from the perspective
Mm.
that like you're brave enough to start to do that work on yourself, and a lot of people are not,
Yeah, I
or
mean,
it's just like it's also, why I think it's intimidating or threatening to toxic men, because you being in therapy equates to a higher self-esteem,
mhm,
which is a higher likelihood that you will catch on to their BS.
for sure.
You know what I mean? So I feel like some men are like turned off about that because it's like, you might be able to see through me, which is usually what happens.
What you talk about today in your session? Me?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh no.
anyways.
And that's another thing that, speaking of boundaries, that is something that I've had to set, is not discussing with people close to me
Mm.
things that I've learned in my sessions or whatever, because it is not your place to invalidate my therapy.
Yeah.
So that's just no. Because I've had
Yeah.
that happen where
Mm.
it's, well, I don't think a therapist should say that to you. Well, okay. Nope. Guess what? Now you will never know what my therapist says because
Right.
I'm doing this work. It's working for me. I'm
Mhm.
improving. It is not your place to invalidate it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Go talk to your own.
Book your free sesh.
Right.
So let's talk about friendships and setting boundaries in friendships just a tad bit. I know we've talked about it previously, but let's see. So my question for you is, how do you handle friends who don't reciprocate the same level of support that you offer them?
I'm kind of starting to be through with those types of friendships, honestly. I take pride in being a reliable friend because that's something I really take pride in and work hard towards.
Mhm.
Um, and so for me, I don't like you have to be realistic though, and I think that goes back to the whole friendship conversation about being realistic with what you can expect from certain friends.
Yeah,
Because you can't expect that level of loyalty in return from everyone.
right.
Um, the length of the friendship can play into that as well. But I think when you have shown up that way for somebody and they don't reciprocate, for me, that would definitely make me want to fall all the way back. I don't even know if that needs to be a boundary that's set or if it's just a noted and I change my
Mhm.
level of effort or commitment to the friendship.
Yeah, I think for me, it's something that when I feel like it's not being reciprocated, I note it and I start to fall back. Because people get very triggered when we try to call them out about certain things like that. And of course, you don't want to lose certain friendships. It's just you learn to play your part and like we talked about before, categorizing your friends,
Mhm.
and kind of realizing like, you know what? Unfortunately, since you no longer are meeting me kind of in the middle, no offense, you're not going to know about every win. You're not going to be invited to everything. There's some things you probably I just will it's just going to be in a different area of my life.
Mhm.
So for me, I honestly feel like and also I feel like the more you grow and the more you elevate your life and you're doing better, people definitely start to not reciprocate as much energy into you because I think people start to become I hate to use the word envious, but it starts to feel like that. And I guess maybe they feel like, oh, you're starting to separate yourself. It's because it's like, no, I'm just have more going on and I'm more busy. But that doesn't mean, you know, treat me differently or don't reciprocate the same energy. Or sometimes it may feel like, well, do you feel away? Or are you jealous or something? Because I'm just trying to do more. But I don't know. I feel like everyone has their weird ways of why maybe they're not reciprocating the same energy. But
Mhm.
I definitely the older I'm getting, the more I'm like, I'm matching people's energy or I'm just falling. Really, no more, so I'm falling back. I'm just
Yeah.
falling back. I'm not reciprocating it. I'm just really falling back, honestly.
Yeah. And one thing that I've tried to be cognizant about is not being reactive to it
Hmm.
and allowing some time to discern, right? Is this friend not reciprocating because they're going through something, or are they genuinely not happy for me? Or have they low key been an op this whole time and I'm just not seeing it? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So I don't want to like be quick to fall back or cut someone off
Yeah.
because maybe this is just a period of time that they're going through something or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's making that note and then being like, okay, what's going on? And if you peep something that's shady and not right, then it's like, yeah, the fallback or the cutoff, depending on what it is. But, you know, I think showing people grace is important too, but
Yeah, for sure.
discerning who deserves grace, because
Yes.
some people have received it and it was a waste of time.
But yes, I definitely think so. Grace is definitely fair and right because it's like some friendships they have so much history and years and it's like you don't want to just kind of close that so quickly. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? But also I feel like I'm also a very forgiving friend. Like there's some friendships I have where some of us maybe have dwindled away, but then you kind of like come back around years later. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's also beautiful, where it's kind of like you pick back off where you left off, or maybe you guys went through something and you both kind of learned. And now you're kind of like, you know what, we can coexist and be cordial and cool again. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm open to that, unless obviously it's something terrible. But I'm definitely open to revisiting friendships if I really can truly see that you've grown and changed.
Mm. I don't know if I've reached that level of growth yet.
Yeah, like I've seen a situation recently. I was like, ooh.
Was it a situation or was it a it wasn't a situation. It was literally the opposite of a situation because nothing was said, no eye contact was made.
But see, no, you're honestly, for me in situations like that, it's either I personally will try my best to somewhat even say hi if it's like a mutual thing. But if someone else is acting funny too, then okay, cool. Let's act like each other don't exist. But I will still try my best to just say hi, at least just the bare minimum. But I get it. Like if the situation's not worth it, then it's like,
Well, I agree with that, but I think if I've blocked you on my phone, then why am I saying hi to you in real life? Like you're blocked in person as well. Like if it's gotten to that point where I have literally blocked you on every
yeah.
social media platform, blocked your number, whatever, I don't need to say hello to you in real life. But I'm also, and this always gets categorized as petty, but I am just a keep that same energy person. Like,
Mm.
if I didn't want to see you online, why am I going to say hello to you in person? Like, to me, that would just be phony,
Yeah, that's true.
But like, eh, on the outside looking in, it's, oh, Blake is so petty. She can't even say hello. No, to me, that's fake. It's like, I
Yeah,
forget
I get
who
that
it
point.
was. Was it Shannon Doherty or whatever? In her will, she had a list of people that she didn't want at her funeral. And someone sent it to me and was like, this is so you. And I'm like, yeah, she had boundaries in real life and in death,
Yeah,
period.
yeah.
And to a lot of people, to me, again, who like haven't done the work or don't or
Mhm.
lack boundaries, it's petty or whatever, immature. No, to me, if you wouldn't be at my celebration of life while I'm alive, my birthday,
Mhm.
or we didn't speak in life, why are you going to come to my funeral when I'm dead? No.
Right.
Like, obviously, me seeing keep that same energy is petty, but I'm joking. But at the same time, to me, that's not genuine.
Right.
That's what I mean by keep that same energy is like, if we didn't speak when I was alive, why are you coming to my funeral?
Yeah, I always feel like that stuff is weird too. Like now you want to be whatever,
No,
pay
I
respect. I
respect
think
that.
that's weird.
Boundaries, even in death.
Yeah, no, for real. Oh gosh. How do you handle a friend who brings unnecessary drama into your life? Or how do you navigate a friend who constantly brings negativity or criticism into your space?
Do people have friends like that?
Yeah, they do.
I mean, okay, unnecessary drama. No, I don't have friends like that. Or I've cut off those friends.
Hmm.
But I do have a lot of friends with strong personalities and they may have strong opinions. Um, and so from that perspective, it's like sometimes you pick and choose what you share. If
Hmm.
you don't, but it's like family too or whatever. It's like if you don't want somebody's opinion, then sometimes you just don't tell them.
Yeah.
Or you just don't talk to them about a certain thing because sometimes when people are close to you, it's not coming from a bad place, but they're just like, "Well, have you thought of this?" or "What about this?" and
Hmm.
da-da-da. And it's like again, another quotable. The 3 H's. Do you want to be helped, heard or hugged,
I like
right?
that.
And
I like that.
sometimes
Mm.
people have all the best intentions and they want to help, 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 but that sometimes is that opinion can feel like judgment or when you didn't ask for it, you
Mhm.
know? So, speaking of boundaries, sometimes that's a boundary you just have to set like, can I just talk about something and I just want to vent. I just want to be heard in this
Mhm.
moment. Or you just don't talk to them about it at all. Whatever that boundary looks like for you. But that's also something I keep in the back of my mind depending on like knowing who I'm talking to, knowing my audience,
Yeah.
right? Because there's people that you go to for advice, but sometimes you literally just want someone to vent to about the same thing that you've been talking about over and over again. That's going to listen to you and not judge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. What about you?
I feel like I'm definitely the listening friend. I'm the friend where it's like, tell me all the stuff that you wouldn't tell most people, as far as just like, I try not to judge people or say something negative back when they're going through certain things. So I think sometimes friends share stories with me that they may not share with another friend, because I really try my best not to judge. But then eventually, if I feel like you're declining or you're sad or, you're being played, then I'm honestly going to be like, okay, let's stop. Like, let's get it together. But
Yeah.
for the most part, I do try to be the listening ear type of friend, because I get it. Sometimes you just want to be just to vent and decompress and like, just
See,
feel like it's a safe space.
I feel like I'm still learning that about you, because you listen and I'm like, does she not have an opinion? I'm like, do I sound crazy? I'm like, why is she silent? I'm like, does she think what I'm saying is insane? Like, but that's just me being an overthinker.
Yeah.
But I'm like, sometimes the silence is like, is she like, that's like that time where I took that edible and I was way too,
Oh yeah.
I literally
remember
got,
that.
you know how the symptoms of when you get too high
Yeah.
and it's like paranoia.
Yeah.
So like that day when I was just literally talking to you and you were just listening, but like in my mind, it was like you were judging the F out of me.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Anyways, no, yeah, I do agree with that too, because for some reason, and you know what's funny to me is I feel like I get this rep that like I'm not approachable, I have resting bitch face, da 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 da. But for some odd reason, multiple people are like, I don't know why I'm telling you this. I've never told anyone this. And it's like,
Period.
I'm like, where does the transition happen from me being like this freaking snarling bitch to people telling me their whole life story, to things that they've never told people in their life? I'm like,
Yeah, that is interesting.
I don't know where that happens, but that's why I say it's like I'm not friendly, but I am, nice. But also I think maybe sometimes people feel comfortable sharing with me because I I would not ever label myself an open book, but like the things that I've gone through and dealt with, and I think why I'm comfortable sharing it on this platform is because if it's something that I went through, and I've already dealt with it, especially in therapy, maybe me sharing certain things with people and me being comfortable being vulnerable about certain things makes people open up. I have no idea, but that's definitely something multiple friends have told me, where it's just like, yeah, I can talk to you about this, this, and this. And it's like, probably because I've made so many dumb ass mistakes that like, who am I to judge? And that's kind of that's kind of the attitude I have. I don't know. So
No, I feel like because with you, you're the type of friend that if someone tells you something, you're gonna have reason, facts. Like, it's just like you give an educated response. And I feel like sometimes people need to hear that. And I feel like sometimes you give a response that people actually need to hear and not what they want to hear. So I think that's something that's good about you that you have when it comes to certain things, where it's like, I'm only telling you because like I'm kind of the friend you feed information sometime if you want to be a little delulu, So so sometimes like it's like, why would you say that, Ashton? Or why wouldn't you tell her this? It's like, because we do need balance in friends. Like there's certain friends, not saying you don't obviously
no,
give
you're
it to
the
Delulu.
you need to be heard friend.
Yes.
Hugged, heard.
Yes.
We know you're not a hugger. Neither am I. So like, you are the you need to be heard friend.
Yes.
And I feel like I'm probably the you need to be helped friend.
Yes. Oh, for sure. That is you.
Yeah.
That is you.
And
but
nobody's coming to us for a hug. We need a third co-host for that.
Oh yeah, ciao.
Literally last night, when we were leaving freaking the place we were at, I'm not gonna say where we were at, but and like Ty's like, all right, bye, and like y'all hugged, and then we were just like, bye, see ya.
No, literally.
Bro, Ashlyn will quick to dip into her car. No hugs, goodbye.
Dang, don't make me feel like that because
I'm not
I
really a
don't
hugger,
know. Yeah,
honestly.
my like it's like I don't know.
I'm saying not really. I'm not a hugger.
I feel like more people have to hug me first and be like, oh,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
No, all
Yeah.
my friends make fun of me, like when we'll be on FaceTime for like an hour and they're like, okay, bye, I love you. And I'm like, bye.
Like, you're not gonna say it back?
No. And then sometimes I'll just get threats like, say it back.
No, I mean, I love it. Like, a lot of my friends too are just lover girls. I'm like, I love that for y'all. Very much, I love you, like all this extra stuff. And I'm like, I love you too. Like,
Yeah.
okay. Too funny. Work. How do you manage expectations when coworkers or your manager may expect you to always be available?
If somebody's paying me like after work hours, I'm just not, or even like if let's say it's like 7 a.m., I'm not answering until 9 a.m. Because for me, setting the boundary, it's like if you don't and you start responding, then people are going to get used to you responding at all hours. I'm not going to get anybody in the habit of that. I would say I haven't dealt with that too much in the workplace, but as far as like consulting, right? Because those lines are a little bit more blurred. I've straight up had to set a boundary, like, because I feel like if you text me something, that's urgent. Whereas an email is like, okay, whenever she gets to it. So it got to a point where I was receiving text messages about things where like, okay, number one, this is not something I can answer in 10 seconds. And number two, this is not urgent. So I did have to send an email. Work days are Monday through Friday. So if you send me something at the end of the day on a Friday, you will hear back from me on Monday. So consulting wise, I did have to set those boundaries and be like, can you please email me something unless it's urgent?
Geez, that's a whole nother story. The difference between dealing with, full time and how you balance corporate America versus, if you are a business owner or you're doing consulting. Because for me, I think it's very hard to set boundaries when it comes to some of my clients, just because I think it's the hospitality industry. And so obviously they're open a lot more and 24/7. So I find myself like figuring out still now how to set certain boundaries with them. But a lot
And
of
you're dealing
times
with
it's hard.
entrepreneurs who just are,
Yeah. It's like right now, right now, right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm on a plane, I'm on a boat, I'm in the water. Like, it's crazy. The expectations or the things that they ask sometimes. It's like, this is literally like, I literally cannot do this right now.
No, I remember when you were in Vegas and I'm like, we're literally taking shots, getting ready to go to Usher, and you're like on your laptop or something. I was like, what the heck, Ashlyn?
I cannot tell you some of the places I have been where it's like, no, I need this like right now. Like, I remember one time I'm literally in the middle of excursion in the middle of the water. I'm literally at sea. And I'm like, I will not have service. And somehow I had service and it's like SOS. I'm literally on a boat in the middle of this island,
Like, y'all don't pay me enough for this.
Heck no. Like, it's just crazy. I think for me, one of the boundaries I think I've had to set for sure is just, I think same like you, is just these are my set hours and my times, because I feel like when you don't, you're just working 24/7, and then it's like you're late to things, you don't have time for other things because you're still working on that thing. But also I think one of the things I've also had to start doing was, if it's not urgent, I'm not about to do it urgently. Because I think the more I started to do things urgently, then it's like more being thrown on me.
But also not everything is urgent. I hate working with people where everything cannot possibly be urgent.
Right. And I love my new company because they're always like, do you have the bandwidth for this right now?
The corporate jargon.
I love the corporate jargon.
How's your bandwidth this week?
I'm like, I just love that word, bandwidth.
Yes.
That word kills me.
Yes.
But I'm like, wow, like, thank you for asking if I have the bandwidth to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. Just before you just throw something at someone, ask, do you have the bandwidth? Do you have the time like to do this? Or what is the turnaround? Or, hey, is there something else maybe I can take off your plate to help? But I think for me, that's about it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess to piggyback off of that, what are some of the corporate terms that just give you the ick?
Like low-hanging fruit, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where it's just, I don't mind circle back
Right.
because I'll be like, can we circle back on this later? I don't mind that. But I don't know. It just reminds me of like corporate Erin on
Yeah.
TikTok. Like, it's not even the sayings for me. It's the attitude that everything's urgent, or
Jesus, yes.
the added, like, again, like I said, I don't remember what we were filming, but where I was just saying, reminding yourself that you're not curing cancer,
Yeah.
and I hate, that's more so what it is. It's not the jargon. It's the people where it's like, this job is their life and we are not out here
Yes.
saving lives. So relax.
Yes. No, for sure. And I
Yeah.
think that just reminded me of the boundary of like, keep work separate from your personal life and
Mhm.
set that boundary, because it's like so many people just engulf themselves in work to where that is their life. That is everything to them, to where it's like, God forbid you lose the job or you get, laid off or fired or whatever it may be. It's like, don't ever tie your life to a job or a position, because it's like, you never know when your time is up.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I definitely make sure I don't get so invested in a company or anything like that, because it's just like you just never know what can happen next. And I feel like some people lose themselves because you're so caught up in that company and title and role.
Yeah. I mean, not only that, the people that are where it's like work is life are miserable to work with because
Yes.
I don't want to say you care too much, but it's just like they add unnecessary pressure, like you are curing cancer, to the job.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that is anxiety inducing, and nobody wants to
Yeah.
work under that.
Right.
Um, that's a boundary for me.
I have this one question I'm like, and then we can wrap this up. Um, do you think it's harder for a Black woman to just set boundaries in the workplace? Why or why not?
Yeah, because we'll get the angry Black woman title. I've definitely got told, of the resting bitch face and all that. I think I really have not gotten negative feedback at any job. The
Okay.
only feedback I have given is that I basically, like, that I needed to share more. And
Like
like I
share
don't,
more as in personal life?
yeah. Like honestly, it was her nice way of saying that I needed to like just do more of like the corporate BS, like the basically like pretending to care about your kids.
Yeah.
When you're meeting with a vendor or whoever it
Yeah.
is, like, oh, how's little, even like, when you can give to, and I'm not a fake person.
Right. I know you're not gonna do
So
all
that
that.
is not like, if I did not, usually on my immediate team, I'll ask how people's weekends were or whatever,
Mhm.
because I genuinely care, because those are the people I work closest with or whatever. But it's just like, I'm not fake like that in real life.
Yeah.
So that was something I really had to adjust to in corporate life. Was it is fake at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, these people don't care about each other, rarely,
Right.
you know? So it's like, oh my God, how was little Timmy's soccer game? Like, I don't care, you know? So that's something I really had to get better at working in corporate life, was that, like, I'm not ever gonna schmooze, but just like
Mhm.
I guess being more personable is what you
Yeah.
could call it. But especially like client dinners or vendor dinners, whatever it is, like
Mhm.
sharing more about myself, which I wouldn't even do at work, really. Like,
Mm.
again, going back to what we were talking about, like, I'm not telling you what I did this weekend,
Child, hell no.
So I had to like learn how I could share something about
Mhm.
myself. But it's also hard when you have like started to climb the corporate ladder and people are married with children, and again, I'm outside or whatever, or I'm like
Yeah.
single and childless, literally, and it's like I literally cannot relate to what you do on the weekends. So I've kind of had to find a way to maneuver that. So like
Yeah.
kind of making the joke about being single and childless has become my thing, and people like laugh or whatever, but they all love it because they're like, no, that's great for you, you're doing exactly what
Mhm.
you should be doing at that age. Because it's like, I'm just going to be real, I'm not good at
Right.
being fake, so let me be honest, I'm single and childless. Yeah, that's why I moved to LA last year, because I can.
Right.
you know or yeah, I'm in New York this week. Why? Because we're remote and I can do
Right.
that. So I've started to slowly share more, but the fakeness, I'm not very good at.
I'm gonna take it from the perspective of feeling like sometimes it's harder for being a Black woman in the corporate world. Is sometimes I feel like, and I think I've talked about this before, is they sometimes make it seem like you need this job. Yes, we all need a
Mm.
job, but sometimes I feel like they kind of will make you feel as though I gave you this opportunity and you better not fuck it up.
Oh, I don't know if
I've
I've
been,
experienced that.
yeah, I think because I worked for a certain corporate
Yeah.
company before, and I felt like my supervisor at the time made me feel like that. Um, to the point, she started to do little things like write me up or try to pull me to the side or try to belittle me. And then it kind of turned into trying to pull certain things from me. And then I realized I'm like, okay, you're trying to play me and work harder to make me feel as though I need this job. Long story short, as soon as she started to switch that up, I'm like, oh, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Because, baby, I don't ever need a job. And you're
Yeah.
not going to try to play me because I was at, the title and the brands that I was working under, no one else looked like me.
Mm.
And so I think in her mind, she felt like she was giving me an opportunity. It's like, I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm not your little whatever you want to call me.
Yeah.
And so that situation kind of taught me that. And I've talked to other friends where sometimes they feel like that and they'll be like, they act like I need this job. And I feel like sometimes these corporations being, Black in corporate America, they sometimes make you feel like that, especially as much as we continue to grow and we get in these bigger positions. So
Hmm.
I think that is my perspective on it in a nutshell.
So something you said sparked a question in my mind. Do you ever sometimes get imposter syndrome when you're in rooms or yeah, yes, when you're in rooms where nobody looks like you, right?
Hmm.
Like how do you keep that confidence like no, I'm supposed to be here. I do know what I'm talking about, right? Because sometimes I know that I know my stuff. I got the job. I interviewed. I'm qualified, but my personality type is not to be the loudest in the room,
Yeah.
you know? And
Same.
so sometimes when you get in a room where somebody just might be a know it all and they're loud and wrong, like sometimes I'm like, well, damn, like, do I need to double check this? And it's like, no, I know my stuff,
Hmm.
but it's just, I can be assertive in certain ways, but like, sometimes in those rooms in a corporate environment, it's like, trying to keep that confidence, like, no, you do know what you're talking about
Yeah.
amongst strong personalities.
No, for sure. I definitely have been in a lot of rooms like that, and you kind of sit there, and it does make you question yourself, and you ask yourself a lot of different things because you do realize, like, wow, no one else in here looks like me. And then you have to kind of all sometimes self reflect and be like, internally, like, wow, I'm so proud of you. You're here, you're here. But also, I'm like you more so, where it's like, I do get a lot more quiet because it's like you really have to watch every single thing you say because they're watching you like a freaking hawk,
Mhm,
So I've learned in corporate too, less is best. And I feel like less is best for me just because I don't know. It's just easier to just maneuver. And I feel like the more you talk, that's when all the problems start arising and you're in conflict and you're getting pulled into HR. And that's just based off of just like stuff I've seen go through with like friends and family.
mhm,
So for me, it's just like I always just try to, I'm here, but I'm not here.
mhm.
You know what I mean? But that's just kind of how I am. Because I feel like the more you talk, the more just can of worms it opens. And it's like, I can't with all that.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah,
I
great
agree.
question.
It's hard. I try to find the balance. I think that comes with preparation too, right? Because I'm more comfortable speaking up if I like no, I checked this data, I did my research, whatever, and you're wrong.
Yeah.
Respectfully. Set these boundaries.
Yeah. Well, guys, I feel like we're good. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for tuning in. See you
Thank you
next
so
time.
much. Bye.
Hallelujah.
Ooh. Oh, we're about to have early arthritis sitting like this for so
No,
long.
for real.